passing of a wonderful actress, Patricia Routledge, of Keeping Up Appearances fame, did spark a lot of interest. And as I said, I was lucky enough to meet her on a number of occasions. Lovely, warm, friendly lady. You know, the sort of person that you feel that you've known all your life. And I think that's what brought her roles to life, because she understood the psyche of people. You know, she understood about, how people were and the sort of characters that she developed. And as I pointed out, she was a wonderful actress in so many different ways, because she could sort of play comedy brilliantly. But as I said, she told me she wasn't sure she was good at it, and then found out she was absolutely excellent at it, as she also had a wonderful singing voice and could sing full Italian opera. A very, very talented lady. Which got me thinking, when I was looking through some other notes and books and pieces about other people that really you look back with wonderful affection. This particular lady has always been, I've just been fascinated by her, Margaret Rutherford. Now, I never met her, obviously, because it wasn't in my time scale, but a good friend of mine, Sir Norman Wisdom, did. And he passed on this wonderful, and as you can imagine, very funny story about Margaret Rutherford and her husband, Stringer Davis. Let me explain. Chums, lovely to see you. Thank you so much as ever for taking the time out to join me today. Welcome one and all brand new subscribers. Now, you must love Margaret Rutherford. I cannot think of a film that I'm not interested in when she's in, and I think it's because, again, she played the dotty, oh sorry, I haven't had a wave at me, she played the dotty sort of English maid very well, I think I first discovered her all thanks to the big film versions from MGM of the Miss Marple series, the ones where she made in the early 60s, and apparently wasn't too keen on them because she didn't know if Agatha Christie would like them, because it's slightly deviated away from certain elements of the storybooks, and she was a big fan of Agatha Christie. And according to Norman, they got on very well, often went to a place in Sheffield Terrace in London for tea and stuff like that. Norman Wisdom appeared with Margaret Rutherford in a number of films, and he said that she was just terrific. She was like this great aunt that you'd known for years, always came prepared, and even in the theatre dressing room had the full tea service, with the cup and saucer and the spoon. And Norman said, you just marvelled at the way she could turn a sort of barren room into something like a palatial palace. But it was interesting because Margaret Rutherford often appeared, almost insisted on appearing with her husband, Stringer Davis. He always had parts in all of her films ever since they were married. And I think that's a nice thing, in fact, that she wanted that. And she was able to command that because of her power, her star power at the box office, which was rightly spotted by none other than Sir Noel Coward when he cast her in Blithe Spirit. A wonderful role and a wonderful part, as you can imagine. Now, Margaret Rutherford in 1963 was appearing at the Theatre Royal in the Haymarket in London. Now, I don't know if you know this, chums, but this is one of the most haunted theatres in the capital. And what's interesting about the Theatre Royal Haymarket, and hands up, I've appeared there, and it's a wonderful place. It used to be run by a guy called, I think he was called Albert or Alfred, I can never remember, but Alfred Crook. And he was Arnold Crook, sorry, I get it wrong. Arnold Crook, right? And he was a real character, a real theatrical manager, You kind of knew that he was weighing up every option, but I liked him. I thought he was terrific. One day I'm sat in his office, and we're talking about doing something on, for TV. And there was a knock at the door, and in walks Dame Judi Dench. I kid you not, some marvellous stories when you think about it. And she said, I'm sorry, I didn't know we were having a meeting. I said, hop in, Dame Judi, sit down, park yourself. And we had a riotous afternoon, just gossiping away. Wonderful stuff when I look back. But at this theatre, as I say, Margaret Rutherford was appearing there in 1963 in a play. And because it was in the October-November time, a terrible fog descended over London. She couldn't get back to her home. So she and her husband, Stringer Davis, decided to stay in the theatre. And this was according to Norman. He'd hopped it, right? He thought, no, he can get back. But they stayed in the theatre. During the night, they both bedded down in the dressing room, and it was they had resting couches. It was suitable. They had a fire, all that sort of stuff. And apparently, Margaret Rutherford was woken in the night by a guy standing literally over her bed, and she described him in full. And basically, Norman said that, instantly felt a chill down his spine because he'd heard of this particular ghost. And when he was she was saying, oh, then eventually the theatre manager came in and said, oh, that's, so and so, and he is the regular ghost. She said, oh, no, we're having a long, lengthy chat, and he's promised to come back tonight, so we're going to stay another night. And the theatre manager said, well, it's not really allowed. You're not allowed to stay in the theatre. She insisted. And apparently, according to Norman, this ghost came back on a number of occasions, had lengthy chats with Margaret, and she truly believed that it wasn't a ghost, it was just somebody that came in and maybe woke her up during the night. The interesting thing, though, is her husband, Stringer Davis, never heard or saw the ghost, only Margaret. And, I said to Norman, well, did she not wake him? And apparently she said, oh, she didn't want to, he was fast asleep. Now, when you think about it, and we talk about ghosts and sort of eerie things going on the channel often, you do come away thinking, how was that possible? When I spoke to Arnold Crook about it, he basically said, oh yeah, he's here on a regular basis. Now, one night I hosted a very special celebrity night with Billy Zane, the actor who's a brilliant actor, currently coming up in a movie about Marlon Brando. And he was in a play there with the gorgeous Claire Bloom, and they asked me to host a sort of interview on stage with them. And they said that they'd also seen another ghost in the prompt corner. Let's just say the offer to stay over in the dressing room, as Margaret Rutherford had done, was certainly not on my agenda. Either way, if you fancy looking round, the Theatre Royal Haymarket do some wonderful ghost tours. Neil Sean in the very heart of the United Kingdom.